Council. I'm the Deputy Chair and I will be chairing today's meeting. I'd be grateful if you can speak up loud into the mic, please. And we'll do introduction starting on the left.
Right, thank you. I'm Councillor Robert Thornburn. I represent Ryburn in Conlow Council.
Councillor Chris Hayden, I represent Eccleshill in Bradford Council.
Councillor Hassan Khan from Wolding and Bagman. Paul Sullivan, Councillor for Bingley Rural Ward in Bradford.
Councillor Neil Buckley from Woodley Ward in Leeds.
Jo Sykes, Independent Member.
Fiona Bernardo, Partnership Support.
Kitty Hamilton, Wakefield Council Policy and Partnerships.
I'm Daniel Ware, Superintendent for Corporate Services at West Yorkshire Police.
John Robbins, Chief Constable, West Yorkshire Police.
Alison Lowe, Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime.
Wendy Stevens, Research and Performance Manager for Policing and Crime.
Liz Hunter, Director of Policing and Combined Place. Julie Reid, Head of Policing and Crime at Combined Authority.
Councillor Celia Richards, Redmond Council.
Trevor Lake, Independent Member.
Jeff Ferguson, I represent Dale Castleford.
Gwen Lowe, Councillor for Batley West in Kirklees.
Anne Kingstone, Councillor for Skirkett and Calderdale.
Sharon Fraser from Wakefield Council, Legal Advisor to the panel.
Samantha Wilkinson, Police and Crime Panel Officer.
Thank you. We're just going to go through the agenda. First thing on the agenda, we've got acceptance of following absence. Sharp from Councillor Eileen Taylor, Councillor Nicole Sharp and Councillor Anthony Smith. To approve the record of the minutes of the meeting of the Police and Crime Panel meeting held on 1st of March 2024. Any deal with any matters arising? We've got an amendment to my name. One of the colleagues got it wrong. The first item 1.1, it should be amended as Councillor Usman Ali, not Councillor Usman Khan, so that needs amending. So that's that. Other than that, agenda item 3, to note any item that the Chair has agreed to add to the agenda on the grounds of urgency. Not that one there. Are you happy with all the minutes?
Yes, Chair, happy to move them.
Thank you. Item agenda 3, any urgent grounds of urgency on the agenda? No items. Agenda item 4, members' declaration of interest. No. And the first agenda on the item is road safety and Vision Zero update. Agenda item 5 is not attached. Alison, would you like to introduce that report, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. Road Safety and Vision Zero update. It's a really comprehensive report. Thank you for the team for really fitting that actually this comes to my last panel meeting of the Mayor's term, because this was raised as an issue at my first panel meeting of the Mayor's term, the day that I was confirmed in post, and really would like to thank once again Councillor Amanda Carter, who was so rigorous in her challenge to the Mayor and I about the way that we worked better as local authority partners to address this terrible scourge which is affecting all our communities of speeding and the consequent death of people both in cars but also in the wider community. We took the challenge that was given to us. We set up the Vision Zero board. A lot of that work is described in this report, and I'm happy to say, and Neil will have the detail, we're already this year beginning to see, on the rolling 12 months, beginning to see some big reductions, although that's not fully reflected in the paper because we've just got that data through. So Neil will be able to give you the latest outturn. But really happy to answer any questions. I'm most pleased about the reference to the community concerns and the 32,000 prosecutions in those areas that were raised under community concerns, because that came from you. That was one of the things that you raised, that councillors were not listening to, local people were not listening to the Safer Camera Partnership. Took that on board, created a new policy, community concerns was introduced, and it's working. So I'm really delighted to answer any questions that you've got.
Thank you. First, to ask the question, Councillor Jackie Ferguson, I'd like to bring you in.
It was just about when my residents report road safety issues to me and I pass that on to the relevant officers. I've been told that 5 serious accidents are needed in that vicinity before any actions will be taken. I wonder if that's the same or if it's changed with the new criteria.
Yeah, it's changed, so yeah, I suspect your officers are not as up to date as they need to be. Sorry about that. So the West Yorkshire Safety Camera Partnership, together with the 5 local authorities, has come up with a new strategy, which I think we sent to you all some months ago. And now local people can alert the Safety Camera Partnership to areas of concern that they think is an accident waiting to happen. And there is then a process where there is some speed monitoring done. They'll have a look at the roads, they'll have a look at a variety of things under the 5 pillars. And if they agree that it meets the criteria, because there is criteria clearly, but it's not the criteria that was required before, they will then put they'll have some vans there, so we've bought more vans, they'll have vans there, and other measures will be put in place. And that's why we've ended up with 42,000 prosecutions above and beyond what we had before at those sites. Neil, anything you want to add?
I was just going to say, if there are issues such as that, please feel free to contact me directly so I can speak with the representatives, because as Alison's quite rightly said, that is not the case in terms of the criteria, and if we need to educate them, more than happy to do that. My contact details are on the report, and I'll happily pick that up. But we do work with a number of key colleagues at Wakefield Council, and the ones that we are working with are well aware of the terminology and the actual changes that we've made, and actually it has just been a full year, so we've had the anniversary of the launch of that strategy, and that was very, very positive in terms of what we've achieved.
Yeah, and in fact Wakefield are one of the best users of the community concerns, so you just spoke to the wrong person.
Story of my life. Okay, great, I'll be straight back onto it.
Thank you. Trevor?
Yep, thanks, Chair. First off, and it's 2.10.3. It's a really good example you've given us there to have a look at. And congratulations to the author of this report. I think it's a really well-written report, very comprehensive, and lots of information in there. So nice to see that the investment of the various campaigns that you've been running is paying off. I just wanted to raise a query on 2.7.10, which is the sort of the graph and the charts around, particularly around fatalities. As a user, a frequent user of the M62, anecdotally, it's been getting so much busier over recent years, as anybody who regularly particularly goes over the Pennines will tell you. And I just wondered whether it would be useful to look at some of these figures, because it is quite hard with the numbers, isn't it, to get a reflective trend on it. And I almost wonder, in a way, is it helpful to see it as a percentage of the users, which I'm sure that information is out there somewhere, because it's definitely busier. So it may actually be that the performance is better, even though it's stable, it's better than one would think, because as a percentage, it's more effective. And it was just kind of ties into your comment of 2.710 really about the use of the measures, and it's just something I think meant to have a think about the next time, whether we can add something else to give some better perspective on the measures.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have got a data person now who helps us and has got direct access, or is getting direct access to the crash data, so we'll definitely raise that with them and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Happy for me to cover
yeah.
So 2.7.10, one of the things that we're trying to do with that particular paragraph in the report is previously we've given collision data, and actually there's a difference between casualties and collisions, because there could be multiple casualties at one collision, and what we wanted to ensure was that we were looking at human cost. So we're looking at casualties, and that's why the figures are like they are. In terms of the data related to the population, we do have certain elements, and you will notice at the end of the report we've actually given it per 100,000 on the details towards the back of the report, and that's more around the ages and that side of things. So we do have that capability to do it, and if that is a request, we can certainly look at that moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Neil.
point 7.6, a table at 2.7.6, and a table at 2.7.8. I'm looking at the 2023 figure. It tells us in 7.7 that the number has increased 30.8% since 2019, which is massive increase. And that's pre-pandemic, so that's a difference since a pre-pandemic situation. Now, I understand that the criteria for recording what is a casualty has changed. How much does that explain that difference in the figures? Or has something else changed that has led to an increase?
Yeah, I'll let Neil answer the technical questions about the graphs.
Yeah, so you are absolutely right in terms of the definitions, and it's actually serious injury, slight injury. The difference is when there's been a change of system, and actually it's less about perception, it's rather about making sure that we can be consistent in terms of the data. So yes, there would be a certain amount of the figure that would certainly be counted by the changes to the recording aspect of it. But I think one of the key things for me that I would raise is you can see the rise in terms of the killed and seriously injured, and it would certainly seem to have made a bit of a plateau on that, which is positive because we can start to downturn certain districts where there's a lot of work going on. We are seeing decreases in terms of KSIs as well, which is obviously where we need to be. And you make reference to 7.8 as well. For me personally, the biggest thing that I would raise is the fatality figure is going down, and that for me is significant, and that's due to a lot of very hard work from a lot of very strong partners.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the table on page 9, which the fourth headline there is phone enforcement. And I realise this is very much an operational thing, but on the subject of phones, I'm a bit of a poacher turned gamekeeper, because in 1996 I remember distinctly driving down the M1 on the phone, holding a phone, a big heavy phone, with my office on the phone, and they were speaking to Germany on a phone call that was going to about 6 people. And I pulled into the services after about 10 minutes, and I realised that this is madness. And I just wondered whether there was anything that the Deputy Mayor could help on this, and to highlight the problem and to get it into people's heads that this is wrong. Because looking at, when you're at the traffic lights, looking to right and left, everybody's on the phone. Can anything be done?
Well, it's illegal.
Well, yes.
I mean, I suppose the first thing to point out is you're fortunate because your admission is now statute barred. You don't need to take any action on that. Draw a line under that one. Yes, no, I think that's where we work in partnership with the Camera Safety Partnership, and the enforcement officers of roads policing, and importantly charities such as Brakes and others, to get across that cultural awareness. There's very few people, and I'll quite happily look around the room, there's very few people who don't wear a seatbelt now, but that used to be custom and practice not to wear a seatbelt. There's very few people comparatively who still drink and drive. You know, that used to be custom and practice. I think the point you make around telephony and telephones has moved on even further into texting. I think we all see people in their cars, stationary, in moving traffic, potentially texting as well as speaking. I think the texting is as dangerous, if not more dangerous. So I think it's still a collaborative partnership approach and a societal issue to make it unacceptable to be using that. So there have been a number of campaigns about lock it away, put it in the glove box and other things. The difficulty is, as technology and other things move on, even the cars are becoming more integrated, and some of the sat-navs have now got apps and integration on those. Thankfully, most of the manufacturers are now making it only voice activated, so you still can't see things. So I think it's incumbent upon us all, a partnership approach and a societal bit, but the police will still take their action. as technology moves on and information technology becomes more accessible and cheaper to frontline officers, I think there'll be greater and greater enforcement opportunities. So in serious and fatal injuries, we do a whole host of work around telephony to show who was doing what prior to the incident. And I think that will move on because the car, the phone and everything will tell us far more. It's just getting access to it. And then eventually people will get their head around that in a preventative measure, a bit like seatbelts and drink driving and societally, it will make it unacceptable.
Yeah. And also you'll see that there are operation this and operation that, so there's always new innovations and new operations being developed to tackle particular issues under the 5 pillars. So I'm sure that we can come up with something around mobile phone use and do some comms alongside West Yorkshire Police and the Camera Safety Partnership. Always happy to be on Twitter.
Are you happy with it?
Yeah.
If I could also raise your awareness on 2.10.3, Operation Tramline is just one of those operations that the Deputy Mayor does mention, and that is in collaboration with National Highways, and that is primarily targeted around mobile phone use. So effectively there is a HGV where roads policing would go out, and from that position they can actually look into vehicles, and there's some really, really positive results from Operation Tramline. It's known as Operation Canine nationally, and we do certainly work with that within West Yorkshire.
Thank you. It's under 2.8.1 on the safer roads. I think this item is to do with using data and Vision Zero and everything to look at alterations to the layout. But my question is, sorry, it might be a comment. We have vast amounts of data sharing between organisations and the police, but when it comes to alterations, it always comes down to funding, and that's where the problem seems to be. Is there a bit more of a shared approach to different funding streams to help local authorities to deal with certain road layouts? Because it just seems to be, unless it's a major project in the local authority, these little tweaky bits seem to get forgotten about.
Yeah. So the good news is we've got a mayor, and because we've got a mayor, we've got devolution, and we've got a lot of cash that comes with devolution. And in fact, in her mayoral term, Tracy brought in £3 billion to West Yorkshire, and it's all been for infrastructure to support our local authority partners, transport infrastructure, etc. So there are millions of pounds that are currently, I can never remember the name of it, the CRSTS money, so there's millions of pounds that have been brought in by the mayor, shared out between the 5 local authorities, precisely for delivery of the Vision Zero objectives in relation to road design, improving the design of roads to make them safer. So that there is money brought in through that devolution deal, and hopefully there will continue to be money to support local authority partners to be able to invest where they need to invest. Is there enough? Of course there's not enough, there never is, but there is enough to be starting the work that needs to be started, and hopefully we'll continue to see those reductions as we're starting to see now.
Thank you.
And then, yeah.
Sorry, this might be a little bit off the track, but in our ward we're finding an awful lot of pavement parking, which is making it very difficult for pedestrians to use the pavements. What is the sort of the mayor's approach on sort of tackling that as part of Vision Zero, please?
So there's some responsibilities that are the local authorities and some that are the police. So if the highway is completely blocked, then you can phone the police, but the vast majority of pavement parking is the local authority and your own enforcement officers. And the problem is, of course, because local authorities have been cut to the bone, you don't have the enforcement officers that you need to properly regulate what's happening on our pavements. I go to a lot of public meetings across the whole of West Yorkshire, and this is one of the regular complaints that we get, and the public don't understand that it's actually a local authority responsibility. And I have every sympathy with local authorities who are not able to employ enough enforcement officers to meet the demand of the communities they're serving. But it is a local authority responsibility, except in quite rare circumstances.
Yes, some of our local officers don't have enforcement powers, so we report it to both local police and the local enforcement. Local officers hoping something will be done. It seems to be a bit of a ping-pong as to who can do something positive about it at the moment.
Well, I'm sure the Chief Constable's got a view.
No, I'm just repeating about it. I find myself sometimes in the wrong meeting. That's a matter for Kirklees Council. 20 odd years ago, they took devolved responsibility for that enforcement. They enjoyed it when they took lots of money out of it. Now they've had to make savings, and you're now looking at the police to resolve it. If you want to give us a responsibility back, then that would be great, and we'll have the money with it. They can't come both ways. And I don't say that to you as an individual council, but I say it in the sense that the police all too often get the kind of the blame for it. However, when there's a road safety issue, then that's a matter for us. But I wish it was back to us in many ways, and wish we had the money to do it, and then we would have whole responsibility and control, because at the moment we kind of get the implied blame for not dealing with it. Yet it's a local authority responsibility, and with the exception of 2 people in this room, that's all of you, so I look forward to your response.
Thank you for that. I was at council 20 years ago, so that's news to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries regarding this?
Just on the data, would it be possible next time to get a breakdown on the types of serious injuries and fatalities, so whether it's pedestrian, cyclist or road?
Absolutely, we have got that data.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? We'll move on to agenda item 6, missing persons.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So, in a way, I'm really pleased that we're able to showcase the work of our Deputy Chief Constable, because it is she that is the National Police Chief Council lead for missing people, and much of the work that's ongoing here locally has been pioneered by her and her team and has been then rolled out nationally. So the paper shows the activity in West Yorkshire, but then also mirrors it on a national level. And there's some great things happening. We've spoken many times about actually missing people are a huge tension for West Yorkshire Police and for all forces because you know, emotionally we want our citizens to be safe, and there's a lot of pressure on the police to respond, but we know that there's been a lot of work to try to apportion responsibility for young people, for people with dementia, people in care homes, appropriately to lessen the impact on policing so that they can get on with the things that the public wants them to do as well. So this paper, I think, outlines what's happening, how we're trying to redress the balance a little bit more, but hopefully gives you some assurance that those people who are most in need are still being served by West Yorkshire Police. And I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you very much. I want to ask about Philomena, because I read this stuff about Philomena in 4.12.1, and I wondered what the police's role in Philomena is, because it mostly seems to be, well, from what I can see, it's all about the people that are carers and families in Philomena, whereas I couldn't see what the role of the police in Philomena is. And then I've got another question about something local to follow on from that. But could you first of all tell me something about what the police will be doing with Philomena?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll pick that up. So first of all, the police have got a responsibility for all missing people who are classed as high risk. So the Thrive assessment is undertaken for every missing person, and then the inspector who is on call will then decide whether or not that person is high risk or not, taking into account a whole range of factors. And that's the case for Philomena as well as for Herbert and all the other protocols that are in place. Wendy wants to give a little bit more information about the Philomena national protocol.
Yeah, so Philomena came on the back of the Herbert protocol. So you can imagine when a child from care goes missing, especially in the way that now they're being placed across the country in different areas, the social workers and the care homes know where this child has come from, where their friends are, if they've got connections in the area, if they haven't. The Philomena protocol is for them to fill in so that when the police come and look for this person, they've got some areas where they can go straight away to look for and find them. Because more often than not, missing persons will go to the places that they know. And so if the police don't have the Philomena protocol, they've just got the name of the person and the care home. So then they have to start that investigation into where they might be, whereas this is there for them right from the word go. So as soon as the call comes in, if the form is there, they think, right, we can go. Because as we all know, it's in those first few hours is where most missing people are found.
So it's about using that.
It's about using that.
But it's also about triaging,
Yeah.
because it gives the opportunity for the police to push back and say, right, you filled this data in, have you contacted their next of kin who you think they might have gone to? Have you gone to their friend's house or contacted their friend? So there's a lot of low-level investigating that you and I would do if our children weren't missing. We'd know, oh right, she's gone to her best mates, or she's got a new boyfriend, whatever it is. We would make those calls, and what often happens with looked after children, with children at risk, with adults with dementia, is the first part of call is, I'm going to abrogate all responsibility for this person and give that responsibility to the police, and then if anything goes wrong, it's on their toes. And so what the police are saying is, this child is your responsibility. You get paid often for looking after this child. You've got a responsibility to do that first level investigation into where they are. You know more than we do. If you've done all those things and cannot then find that child, come back to us and then we will do the next level based on the information in the Philomena protocol. But it is about shared responsibility. It's not all down to the police, because as adults, as parents, as carers, we've got responsibility to our loved ones first and foremost. And then when the Thrive Risk Assessment indicates a level of vulnerability, risk, time has passed and suddenly it's becoming more and more likely they're going to come home of their own accord, then clearly the police will get involved.
So this seems to be more relating to looked after children,
yeah,
rather than children in family homes. And the other question I wanted to ask related to a child in a family home yesterday in Calderdale that I saw just on social media, that their family were beside themselves because this child clearly was neurodiverse, was a vulnerable child, had gone missing early in the day, and the police wouldn't do anything about it until the evening, even though this was a vulnerable child. So it looks to me like Philomena's great. What's in place for that kind of situation where it's not a child that's in care, but is from a family home and yet is vulnerable?
Yeah. I mean, it's always difficult when you're citing individual circumstances,
yes,
because we don't know the full story. But, you know, there will be a lot of work being undertaken, because the Mayor and I get these things called FMDLs, Force Management Daily Logs. Every day there are 2, 3, 4 people, often children at risk of exploitation, go missing. And sometimes those children are classed as medium risk, but very quickly, within a matter of a few hours, are escalated to high risk. And that's often because the parents are being asked to do some of the low-level investigation into where they might be. And that is all part and parcel of the right person, right care, or right care, right person, whichever it is. And that is the national protocol that's being rolled out and all police forces are following. So I'm sure that if that child was still missing in the evening, as you said, that the risk assessment would have increased and that person would be now subject of a police inquiry. But it's difficult to talk about individual cases, yeah, because there's so much just that obviously social media won't capture.
Like other children like that, you know, yeah, where does
but that would be one of the vulnerabilities taken into account. Right. But there might be all sorts of other reasons why actually this child has gone missing 6 times before and they're always with the best friend. So you don't know what the story behind that child is or that family is. You only see what they choose to put on social media. That's not an indication of any judgment for that child or that family, but because I've been doing this a long time, you know, I always get to see the bigger picture, and it's very rarely as it first painted.
If you send through the details, we'll check on it, because I find it very hard to believe that they haven't been assessed as vulnerable unless there's other extenuating circumstances in that. So the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor see probably the high risk ones every day. There's about 30 people always outstanding on a rolling basis, missing from home in West Yorkshire, split between adults and children, and about 10 to 15 of those are high risk. Children are exploited of exploitation, criminal exploitation, vulnerable by virtue of age, or adults through Herbert Protocol, mental health or suicide who are intent on taking their own lives. That's every day, constantly, throughout the whole year. So policing is deployed to those. Through the work of the Deputy Chief Constable and other things over the last 5 to 8 years, we've probably just about nearly brought that down by half to a third. So that's a significant amount of resources who are doing the right thing on behalf of society. They're not investigating crime, keeping people safe off the roads, or doing the other things we really need them to do. But the child in the home is treated, you know, we'll get the full threat assessment, thrive assessment, and the response that we need. You know, we are so all over it now, it'd be rare that we've made mistakes and not dealing with things. The difficulty sometimes is those regular repeat young people who are missing all the time and keeping on top of that vulnerability. So, you know, a 13-year-old who is regularly missing is still high risk, but they're regularly missing. I'm talking 4 or 5 times a week, and they're going all over the country. So it is hard. But send us that one, because if it's as it's laid out, then that family don't feel happy with the police response, and we haven't articulated in the way in which we should have done to help them.
Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. This question regarding, I know the issue is controversial at the moment, but facial recognition with CCTV, has that been sort of looked into, special cases with missing people and persons, especially children? Because use of cameras and, you know, you look at the automatic number plate recognition. You know, watching programme once and there were a chap went missing, he was driving, but they were tracking him because every camera he passed, he was peeing, so they were following him, really. It's just the same idea, but trying to track missing people.
Yeah. So, of course, policing use facial recognition, but so do local authorities. So all the CCTV cameras at local authorities are responsible for. There are teams of people watching all the time, and if someone's missing, the police will send a photograph of that person, and the CCTV operators will be watching. I've seen it myself. I've been in many of these places and seen pictures of people that they're looking for, and it's really helpful. And obviously, if the police know that someone always goes to a particular shopping centre, I'm sure that they might go to the security staff there and ask them to keep an eye out. If someone's classed as vulnerable, of course, they wouldn't do it as a general thing because of all the ethics around use of data. It's also a really complicated area, isn't it? AI, ways that we can take people's information, private information, without their consent. Often we're using it for their own good, but sometimes there is that ethical tension between whose good is that data being collected on behalf of, which is why we're just about to interview next week, in fact, a joint ethics panel alongside West Yorkshire Police that will have a focus on AI, things like facial recognition, to help us and guide us into that really complex world and help us to come to the right conclusions and help the Mayor and I to ask the police the right questions when decisions are taken about which level of AI development to embrace. It's a national piece of work, the NPCC, around this. I sit at the APCC, the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners. I'm Deputy Chair of the Transparency and Integrity Board, and AI and use of data in this way is one of our work streams. So we are constantly thinking about how we can use it to get criminals off the street, to protect the vulnerable, but also triangulating that with the need for the public to have their privacy maintained. So yeah, it's a huge area. Anyone got any great ideas about how we can meet the needs of the public whilst not breaking the law, then or being unethical, then really happy to hear any of those comments. And when we've got the panel in place. We'll invite the chair to come to a future meeting and introduce you to them, and hopefully they'll be able to answer some questions in one of your private sessions perhaps.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's quite clear from my point of view, reading this, that we're taking this very seriously. It's a very comprehensive report, looking at lots of different angles of how this could occur. What I'm struggling to understand is how we can hold to account the performance, because the key data that I've been looking for, and I don't know if it's available, is the amount of time it takes to find somebody from when the report goes in to them being found, and that as a comparator compared to other forces would be more useful to measure the actual performance. A lot of this is preventative and to try and alleviate problems, but ultimately it's very hard to blame the police if people go missing. It's about...
We don't want to blame the police if people go missing.
But the missing person numbers is the main data we're going on here, which isn't... It's just sort of setting this picture for what we're dealing with, but it's not actually anything about that performance.
Yeah.
Arguably a little bit with preventative, but...
Yeah, so we've got two metrics in the police and crime plan, which is obviously the document that we rely on, and the set out as the strategic framework. And so we don't just count missing persons, we count repeat missing as well as an indicator, and that's national data set that we can compare ourselves against most similar forces. I don't know how easy it would be to calculate how long people were missing for, and in fact is it really that we need, because isn't it how long were people missing at risk for, because they might not be missing at all, they might be with their mates, they might be having a nice holiday, they might be doing all sorts of things. Absolutely. Or they might be missing because they choose to be, again, is that a bad thing? Not for them necessarily, maybe for the family. So it's about harm that we need to understand, and how harm is impacting on individuals and our communities. So let's take that away and have a think with West Yorkshire Police about how we might capture some of that potential harm, and we'll come back. I mean, we don't collect this data, the police collect it, so I don't want to commit to anything that might not be possible, because it all depends on the data sets that we've got in place.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is about 4.11. We heard the protocol and policy protocol. I think it's a great system. You know, it's good to see something like that in place. I just wondered about how effectively the sort of reports from families. It's good that it includes families. How effectively, how quickly and efficiently they're monitored, you know, those responses on there are monitored. Does it entail having somebody checking up on it all the time and that kind of thing? How does it work?
No,
that's
so
the first bit.
Yeah, I started to come back. So that is, it's led by families, so the families input all this information onto the system, which West Yorkshire Police hold, but there's no monitoring of that data. Right. It's up to if the family want to, so it's, I think it's sort of like a portal, and they can update it anytime they want to update it. We're in a really happy position in that of the 200 forms that we've got, we've not had to have a look for any of those people because none of them have gone missing, which is great, but those families are obviously very proactive and making sure that they're well prepared in that instance that it might happen.
That's good then, because it makes people feel like sort of in control of themselves.
Yeah, and that's why Safe and Found is so good. It doesn't require input from West Yorkshire Police. It is a tool that they can use. It's a resource that they can go to if someone does go missing and ask those early questions, have you been here, have you been there? And then when they're satisfied that that early triaging has been done, they then can move to the next stage.
I get that triage thing. It was partly answered, my question was partly answered when I asked her question, but I suppose that leads on then to my next bit of that thing. But what about people who are not sort of digitally au fait, you know, families who are not able to use the technology and so on and so forth?
But then it would just go back to the old-fashioned way the police would be saying, where have they gone missing before? Have they gone missing before? Where do they normally go? Where's the favourite places? Have you been there? Have you been to their uncles? Have you been to the brothers? Do all those sorts of things. So they just do that, you know, as they do it now for the people who do go missing. Okay. And there's still a paper copy that they can, that they can have a look at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to look at something at a bit of a higher level, 1.6, page 4. So the comment at 1.7 is that the number of missing persons dropped during the pandemic and is stabilised over recent months, which is correct from that graph. But actually, it's halved on what it was in 2019. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah,
Where we are, it's half what it was, and that's as a result of coming out of the pandemic with the new initiatives that we talked about that have been put in place. So I think perhaps missed an opportunity there to say it's, down 50% on 2019.
Well, we're humble. And
it's always good to be humble. Always good to be humble. But I think that's a really good result. So the second part of the question is around that, because I think we heard last year that it's still taking a huge amount of resources to keep these figures down there. And so my simple comment was, well, why is that still such a problem, given that the numbers are half what they were in 2019? I know the colleagues on the table have shared with me their experience of the complexity of some of these cases, and I'm guessing that's probably where you're going to tell us. But I would just be interested to hear why, when the numbers are 50% of what they were in 2019, why is there still such a demand on the resources to keep on top of that?
Well, it's about vulnerability, isn't it? It's about children or vulnerable adults going missing, and it's very resource intensive, because the last thing that anyone wants is for harm to come to those people. So every resource that is available will always be put into the search for those people. So it's going to be resource intensive, and then of course it's not in a vacuum. So not only are West Yorkshire Police looking for missing people, they're also dealing with other crimes, domestic abuse, which is 20% of all the offences that they're dealing with every year, fraud, rapes, murders. So it's within the context of everything else that's happening. And of course we've talked a few times about experienced police officers retiring. Very happy for them. We've got a lot of brand new police officers without the experience, so the investigation skills have not kept pace with the growth in recorded crime, and so there's a bit of a gap between what we need in terms of experience and what we've actually got in experience. There was no recruitment for many years between 2010 and 2019. So that whole generation of officers who should now be the front line in terms of experience, they're not there. And so when you match the capability and capacity with the demand, that's why the pressure remains.
I think just to add to that, some of that reduction will have been people who were probably reported and recorded but may not have had a full response to it, in the sense that there might have been adults from hospitals or people who've not made appointments with the NHS, or children who were older who are regularly going in and out and have just been abdicating responsibility to the police because they haven't returned home on time. So some of that reduction will be volume and numbers that we will have still dealt with, but maybe not with the veracity of the high risk. And the other reason why it feels still so busy is because we're able to deal with them more effectively and give the right resources to them. Because caught in that volume previously in 2019 and before that were probably cases that we should have done better with, or we should have done more with, and we should have been smarter with. I'd like to say more efficient with. So we probably then provide, we're able to see the wood for the trees and provide the dedicated service to either vulnerable children who have been out on their own, or vulnerable adults who are definitely intent on taking their lives, or vulnerable adults with mental health, with age or dementia, who are vulnerable by virtue of it. So I think it's probably a combination of some of it will have just been volume that which didn't need to be there before. But actually, I'm being careful with my words around this. And a lot of other crime type things we deal with. We wish we were able to give them all a better service, but with the being less there, we probably are giving them a better service, and we're actually it still takes the time to do it properly.
Thank you.
I just want to ask about this item at 2.3.1. So work's being done on collecting data well, it's scrutiny specifically that I'm looking about, whether there is any evidence of unconscious bias from officers dealing with missing persons investigations. It looks like you're early in the stages of that from the brevity of this paragraph. But I presume at some point the panel will see some data from those investigations.
Yeah.
Are you aware of, haven't found unconscious bias affecting searches for missing people from ethnic minorities in West Yorkshire? Have you found evidence of that?
Yeah. So we know that black people who were missing don't get the same level of service as their white counterparts, and that cuts across every area of policing, NHS, Teach It, we can go on. It's a system issue that we know is real, and this piece of work particularly came about as a result of the murders of Nicole Smallman and Bieber Henry, and then the pioneering work of their mother, Mina Smallman, who is really holding police to account for the way that they treat black people who are missing, and that cudgel was taken up by the NPCC and the national work, which I think is described at 4.10, that's again led by our deputy, Catherine Hankinson, is also being followed here in West Yorkshire. So there's early work has started, the data needs to come through, and we need to get some proper metrics that we can start to understand what the difference is in terms of people who are going missing who are of colour and people who are not of colour going missing. So that data set, I think, is in the process of being developed and adopted nationally, and then it'll fall back down to West Yorkshire, and we'll be able to get some understanding. But as a black person, yes, disproportionality exists, unconscious bias exists, and what's good is that there's a recognition of that, and there's action to mitigate some of the impact of that bias.
Just to add to that, in London there was very clear evidence that there was biases and disproportionality and potential discrimination. I suppose what this was trying to point out that through Catherine's work, I'm not aware of any other force outside of London doing so much work on it to just check through and look at. And we're exploring and uncovering new terminology about adultification. It's about how we treat young people who might appear differently to different people. That's the societal issues. So we've previously looked at it across all minority ethnic communities about our approach, maybe with language difficulties, with cultural difficulties, with natures of how people have been reported. But I think after seeing what's happened in London, there's been some very specific work we're ongoing with the black community. But there's a societal issues as well, isn't there? Because, as Nicola Bully was missing in Lancashire, we had virtually a carbon copy case of an Asian male in Bradford that nobody was interested in as far as the media and the public are concerned. And sadly, he was found underwater as well. And so it's, we are a reflector of society, so it's not all because there are police officers that behave like this. It's because we're part of British society that we behave like this. So there's a good news story in the sense we're trying to uncover whether there is biases or not and how we deal with things, and it just lays a guide as our approach to not making unconscious assumptions about the age of people, the behaviour of people, the background of people, the potential associated links to criminality or not, because they're not usually there. So we're on with it, but I'm not aware, with Alison's support, of other forces doing it in such depth.
It's being led by Catherine, so that's a good thing for us.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask about on page 10, point 4.11.1, the Force of Patrol protocol, so it's aimed at veterans with PTSD who may go missing. Could I just ask for some more information on that? Because I'm a member of my local branch of the Royal British Legion, and I just wondered if it's something that we could share with the branches as well.
It's a very good idea, and actually we've got links with all the Armed Force veteran leagues across West Yorkshire. So we'll go back to West Yorkshire Police, we'll get a bit more detail on that, and we can share it with you, but also I think it'd be good to share it with them too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? No? We'll move on to item agenda 7, live production partnership update.
So, yeah, Lee's here. I've got my wingman, so that's good. So Violence Reduction Partnership, we've spoken about it many times, we've had lots and lots of papers where VRP's been referenced, so today there's a whole paper on it, the wonderful work that we're doing, and the difference they're making to serious violence here amongst young people in West Yorkshire. I'm really happy to answer any questions because the paper is incredibly thorough and detailed, and I don't think I need to say any more, and then Lee will assist me for any detailed questions that you might have.
Anybody? Jill?
Yeah, just thank you for the report, the comprehensive report, and the focus on all the work that the VRP has been undertaking. Well, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself as a VRP, not VRU. Just one issue really. We'd like to ask the Deputy Mayor for her thoughts on how well the partnership is working in terms of the serious violence duty and what the scrutiny arrangements are that are in place to ensure that everybody who needs to be is focused on this very important issue.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, because actually we've done a lot of work with the partners around the serious violence duty. And what you might not realise is that our job is to hold them, our partners, to account. But actually we've gone a step further using the resources of the VRP. We actually commissioned someone, Nicola Hughes, to work alongside all our local authority and other key partners to help them to develop our West Yorkshire-wide serious violence duty response, the strategy. Helps them to develop theirs locally, and Nicola is still heavily involved, still commissioned to support that work. And I think we've gone further than any other force that I know of in relation to the contribution of effort that we've given. We've also had Crest Advisory, who themselves have been commissioned by the Home Office to come and look at how mature our serious violence duty arrangements are. And I think we were outstanding.
Yeah,
I don't want to brag.
Yeah, we've had two independent evaluations of the Violence Reduction Partnership, but specifically that partnership arrangement, which is absolutely key to addressing the challenges that we've got here, not only in West Yorkshire but nationally too. And the Deputy Mayor is right that the first assessment we were assessed as being mature, demonstrating best practice, and the most recent report by Crest Advisory, which was part of the National Violence Reduction Unit's work, so there's 20 units nationally, we form part of that. The highest score you could get across the 4 areas that were assessed were good, and I'm really proud to say that we achieved good in each and every one of those. That being said, we can't stand still. There's a tremendous amount of work still to be done, and we've got some real challenges ahead as well, so we will keep driving, we will keep striving to improve on that. And just to demonstrate the question about the duty holders, and not forgetting obviously the duty holders under the serious violence duty are police, youth justice, integrated care board, fire and rescue, probation and local authorities. What sits alongside that, where we must also engage and work with, is education, which is absolutely key, and our colleagues in prisons. Just to demonstrate recently the fantastic work that's ongoing with fire and rescue, they've really positioned themselves now so they understand what the duty means to them as an organisation, so that's enhancing delivery, and we're continuing to drive that work.
Yeah, and I should just say in relation to health, because we're lucky enough to have working for us, who's part funded by the ICB, part funded by the VRP. She's helping them to develop their serious violence duty, strategy, policy, whatever it's called, and we've specifically used that as an opportunity to push our serious violence agenda, but also our VOG agenda. So she wants them to make specific reference to spiking, for example, and the responsibilities of all health partners across West Yorkshire to follow the proper protocol, so that people who believe they've been spiked, we can get the evidence, because currently it's really patchy, and victims are telling us that health is not doing they're not doing their jobs consistently to enable prosecutions to take forward. So that's just one example of how we're able to use the duty with our partners in a really innovative way. I don't know anybody else that's using those opportunities in the way that we are, and we'll see how that manifests as we go forward, but it's exciting.
Thank you. So as the work progresses onwards and the scrutiny begins to develop, I know colleagues around the table would be really interested to know if you feel there are partners who could support you more than they are doing, or where there's opportunity for the police and crime panel to help in terms of pushing that, particularly within local authorities.
No, thank you. And obviously we have the Partnership Executive Group, and that's the body that we've agreed will be the proper accountability arrangement, and I chair that, and all the partners come to that meeting, and serious violence duty is one of the core agenda items. So we have got the governance in place, as well as serious violence board that we've got. So yeah, lots and lots of mechanisms, but it's about testing them out as we move forward, and we become more mature across all our partnerships, not just policing, not just some of the other partners are really well advanced, bringing them all along at the same pace.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Anybody else?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just reference 5.4.3. Whilst you're looking at that, and a very comprehensive, good paper, giving us a good briefing on what's going on. I just had a particular query because of my background to do with the navigator service in A&E and the pressure that I know A&E are under, both in terms of rising demand on their limited resources and also the rise in violence that they're experiencing, how effective that intervention is. Rather than put you on the spot, maybe it's something that you could bring it back in maybe the September meeting, for example.
I could perhaps give some reassurance around that model, but absolutely can bring back those figures. It is a fantastic work stream that we've got, and it demonstrates that partnership approach. We've identified the areas such as A&E and indeed custody, because we operate a very similar model within custody as well. It's what we reachable and teachable moments, so at that crisis point. We actually, last year in West Yorkshire, again really proud that we held a national event in relation to the A&E Navigate scheme as well. So we are leading the way with this. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and our colleagues in A&E, Integrated Care Board and Health recognise that as well. And interestingly, some of the benefits that have been identified, and these were unintended consequences which are positive, is identifying multiple complex needs that people are presenting with the A&E. So they might present with an injury, which understanding what those things are that sit behind it, and then we can put a wraparound with services. And albeit it's under embargo at the moment in relation to the inspection of leads in the JTI report, that will come out, and that'll demonstrate impact and value, notwithstanding also got challenges within that as well. So I think the thing to remember from the Violence Reduction Partnership and this work moving forward is that, and we've heard it already this morning, the problems that we are tackling are societal problems. They're complex and they sit across multiple different areas of work, and funding will always be a challenge for us. So we're in our final funding year at the moment. The work that I've got ongoing with partners across this remainder of this 12 months, this financial year, is around sustainability. So what does that look like if we're not funded beyond the 31st of March 2025? Because it's an absolute must in relation to the delivery. Bearing in mind the methodology that we've picked up is what our colleagues in Scotland introduced in the year 2000. So we're looking at 15, 20-year strategies to sort of bring about that systematic change. Obviously, we need to do something about the here and now, and that's what we're doing. And what sits alongside the Violence Reduction Partnership is our Operation Genlock team as well, in relation to our targeted activity within the communities and our enforcement and our prevention techniques. So they fit hand in glove, but we've got to keep pushing through as a partnership into the next 5, 10, 15 years if we want to see sustainable and tangible change in this work.
Yeah, thank you. Very comprehensive answer, thanks. And also, if we can just get some feedback on mentions that Wakefield is currently being implemented. I think the last time we had this update report, it said the same. So I know...
Yes, so we are going live. We are supporting that this year. There have been some challenges with that trust. We've overcome them, and delivery will commence within this financial year.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got two. Apologies, I keep getting to switch the microphone on. The Bradford multi-faith event, I want to ask about that. Were you at that, Alison? Or?
I don't think I've turned mine on once, so. No, I wasn't at that. It was led by the Mayor's inclusivity champion, Fatima Khan Shah.
Yes.
And because it was felt that it was something that she could really bring all the partners to the table, but obviously it specifically relates to the work that she does. But I was briefed beforehand and I was briefed afterwards, and I think it was a brilliant event that started some very important conversations, particularly in the current climate.
Great. I'm involved in Colville Interfaith on the steering committee. You might be aware that there's been a national problem in that the National Interfaith Network has closed down. So I was wondering, is there an appetite for a West Yorkshire-wide faith network?
Well, it's so funny you should say that, because obviously there's a little thing called an election, but the Mayor has every hope and intention to set up a county-wide faith forum of some kind led by Fatima, if she chooses to return, and so watch this space.
Right. Because I think that it's correct that there is a major role for faith communities in this area. So that was that. And then the other in my role as link for violence against women and girls, I want to ask about the Just Don't campaign, reaching approximately 500 people at secondary school level. That's clearly a very, very tiny number compared to the number of young people we've got in West Yorkshire.
Number than that.
So I can just add to that. So that was personal engagement of 500 people, part of that work. Obviously, the reach of the campaigns were into the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions that it's reached. So just for clarity,
3.5 million last time we looked.
that was about 500 people who were engaged.
This is specifically about in schools.
Yeah, so we went into the schools using that campaign as a vehicle to engage, and that was 500 children that have been engaged. But as you say, the reach
and
far beyond that.
Yeah, schools individually have been showing the video.
So without
colleges
going into them, schools have been doing it anyway.
Kirklees College, for example, which I've visited several times, they've shown it to all their students. I don't know how many students are at Kirklees College.
Have you any data on how many schools have used this?
We can get that.
Well, we can try and get it, because we don't know what we don't know. Some schools will have picked it up.
Because it keeps coming back to me, we want to affect societal change, so we have to be talking far, far bigger numbers to actually make that level of impact.
Yeah, and just for clarity on that, so the reach of the media, the campaigns recedes into the millions. This paper's talking about, if you like, face-to-face as we are now, when we've been into those establishments and engaged with young people. So the reach might be hard to actually break down who, when, but we certainly can report back our activity going into the schools, and we've been talking about sharing this. That's
and we do have Erin here, who leads on this piece of work. Erin, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Well, just to say that there is going to be reviews into education subgroups, specifically looking at the background of the feedback of the campaign, because we've had so much of a targeted audience, but it's actually about programs interventions. So we want to do scenario-based interventions that go into schools and look at not just schools but prisons, as we spoke about before, and how they can sort of educate and do that preventative work, just specifically on the back of the campaign feedback. So increasing that allyship, increasing that sort of interventions, and for people to come back and see reporting why they are saying the way they are, and also change their attitude and behaviour is helpful. But as Dr. Mayor said, watch your space.
Yeah, and also I should say that it complements the POLED work that's been going on for several years now. I think 89% of all schools in West Yorkshire are now signed up to POLED, and there is specific VOG, there's a massive VOG offer, so it breaks down into several courses that schools can choose to use, and they do that. Actually, the relationships and the VOG type courses are the most popular in the schools, because West Yorkshire Police monitor that. It's the only programme in the whole country.
I mean, actually, I was just going to suggest that offline, that if you do it through the Follow programme, the site is set up that you can monitor how many people have accessed it, how many times it's been shown, and it'll provide that performance data.
Brilliant. And I think we did approach Pollard to try and get the video, Just Don't Video, as part of the offer. So we'll just go back and make sure that we've picked that up.
Just for clarity in that point, that 5.6.9, it was 6 schools, 500 children engaged, and we used the vehicle as a Just Don't campaign to go in around sexual, harmful behaviour, attitudes and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And then, of course, is all the money that the Mayor's invested in the Mayor's Safe Communities Fund, where there's been hundreds and hundreds of children reached on toxic relationships, for example, through Red Ladder. There's one called Red Flag. So many different charities that have done this work in schools that the Mayor's funded. So, yeah, huge amount of work going on. But we need to do more. Thank you.
Any other questions or queries? No. Agenda item 8, assurance paper.
Yeah, so it's finally here, and I'm really sorry for the delay, and hopefully it meets with all your expectations. So this paper is effectively a combination of various verbal, confidential and other updates that you've had over 3 years. It brings together lots of different information, but in a format that is able to be published, and really happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alison, for the report. It's very detailed and lots of information. Thank you. I just wanted to ask a query on 2.2.5. About the PDR, there's a reference in there, 2.2.5, second bullet point about introducing a new PDR system. I just wondered what was wrong with the old one.
Well, there's always innovation in the police. They always want to get better. I'll let John describe the reasons, the rationale.
I have a feeling that we may be discussing this again in the future. There was, because I've asked the same question, there was a desire to move to what is called a 9-box grid, which is a well-used international and UK-based assessment of individuals to highlight development, opportunity, sideways or progressive or promotion issues. And that 9-box grid then went alongside a desire to refresh and update what some parts of the organisation felt was a bureaucratic PDR system. I think it's fair to say that the introduction of the new system was not as smooth as it could have been or should have been. We've had to do a lot of post-implementation work, and we're still reviewing the process. Because the feedback from staff, and we'll talk about it in the future, is it's harder, it's clunkier, it's more difficult. And we're trying to work through, is that just organisational change, or have we not got it right, have we introduced something that's difficult? Because I'm with you, there wasn't a great deal wrong with the last one. What was missing was a wider context. It's tried to become more self-generative, more interrelated to other things, bring in some of the behavioural issues and practice requires improvement, and some of the harder side of things about people and officers and staff being told to improve, alongside development and so-called happy sheets and other things. I just have a very probably fair assessment. We may have over-engineered it and made it more difficult for people, and we just need to think on about that. But the principles of regular meetings, supervisory intervention and annual assessment are all there, but I think we've maybe made the technology in this system around it a bit complicated. I might prove to be wrong in the future when somebody says actually we're all used to it, it's great. So there's nothing wrong with the old one. We were just trying to progress and update and improve it, but occasionally, organisations and things don't get everything perfect first time.
Yeah, and it's HR, isn't it? How many new HR systems? We've just got CI anyway, West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Yeah, and that's bedding in, as let's say. So it was ever thus. That one's for you, Joe.
Yeah, so can I just ask a follow-up then? I mean, given that you're bedding it in and there's some teething issues with it, it might be helpful, maybe at a future meeting again, possibly September, that to just have an update on. I'm asking this question because it's fundamental, and it came out of the case review, didn't it?
It's about completion rates and engagement.
About completion rates, engagement, just to get reassurance. I know you're on top of the case, Alison, clearly made that in your
And
report,
actually,
but if you could share that, that would be very helpful.
and actually when I reported this to you last year, the new system wasn't in place, and we've just updated this line because we got information from West Yorkshire Police that they had just brought in a new system. So I think when I first reported that to you, there was a very high completion rate which I reported to you, which was in the sort of mid-90s. And so, yes, we do need to check this in, and we'll pick it up in our
well, if we can just have that as a starting point, and then where we are now, that would be quite
So just for assurance, and you're right, the issue with the Metropolitan Police Services is a lack of supervisory intervention, a lack of supervisory control and oversight of officers and staff. Even under the new system, which has been clunky, we're still way ahead in terms of volume and numbers and interventions and managerial meetings. They might not be as regular as we would like them to be, but they're still far better than other forces.
Okay. Well, that's very reassuring.
And we'll report back more in more detail.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Really? No. We'll go on to standing items. Agenda item 9, the Mayor's response to any current issues, verbal update.
Yeah, thank you very much. It would be remiss of me not to mention the terrible events that took place in Bradford last weekend. Our thoughts and feelings go to the family at this really difficult time. Just wanted to reassure the panel that everything that can be done is being done to secure justice for that family. And it's obviously a live investigation, so I can't go into any details. But I do want to commend the senior investigative officer in this case who got her man, and after a national manhunt that took place this week. So I want to thank all the forces that supported that, because every force in the country stepped up and was part of the search for that suspect. And just want to make that really clear that that was a partnership approach. But the SIO was dogged in her determination, and it's right that we should commend her for the work that she's done to date. And we will obviously let justice take its course, and we may return to this at a future meeting. The other areas to report back on, I thought it was useful just to say that Bradford had an anti-violence month through March and April. Actually, it was a brilliant month of events, engagement with schools, colleges, a really wide partnership approach, which I was at the launch of, and hopefully it will lead to some further work being done in those places where young people are, and it's hopefully the trigger for other localities to also do a month of intervention, which obviously Leeds had already done the previous month with the Knife Angel, and which Bradford also introduced last year. I attended a West Yorkshire retail crime roundtable on 20th of March. So this was in association with the British Retail Consortium. So there've been many questions about the rise in shoplifting, assaults on shop workers, for example. And I think I reported that West Yorkshire Police were going to have their own forum and invite retail partners to that meeting, which they did in February, which I attended and spoke at. And then the British Retail Consortium requested that I attend a roundtable with some of their members, and I also attended that and heard firsthand some of their experiences, and was able to give some assurances around the commitment of the Mayor to include retail crime in her next policing crime plan, to work alongside the National Police Chiefs Council on developing some metrics, because currently the retail crime plan that the NPCC has developed doesn't really have any metrics, and so we wanted to give that assurance to retailers. We wanted them to know that we were alive to some of the systemic issues that needed to be addressed in terms of people stealing to sell online, and that the online harm bill really needed to include that a bit more clearly and formally, because it really doesn't, and if we don't disrupt the acquisitive crime, which is all about selling online and selling in shops, for example, then that's going to be a cause for more of this crime to take place. We are really keen to work with the British Retail Crime Association, but also our retail partners like the Co-op, for example, where the Mayor is speaking this week, I think, to understand what more they need us to do to keep shop workers safe and to keep crime down and to provide a more effective response. So, yeah, really good meeting, and it's given us a lot of thinking to do in terms of how we incorporate that into our planning post-May, obviously, notwithstanding there's an election. We also launched our Safe Mission in March in Kirklees at the bus station. We chose Kirklees because actually they have got lots and lots of safe places in Kirklees, in schools, in all sorts of venues, and we wanted bus stations to be safe places. So we went to the bus station with the leader of council. It's gone down really well because all the staff have been trained. So all the staff bus stations in Kirklees, that's across West Yorkshire, all the staff are being trained in how to support vulnerable people who might need assistance. Anyone going into the bus station now asking for help, staff have been trained and can respond, can signpost. And that is part and parcel of the whole Safe the Travel team that the Mayor has funded through her PCSOs on buses, etc. So it's a great innovation, and hopefully your constituents will benefit. And then finally, the VIP Knowledge Exchange, the 4th annual 3-day Knowledge Exchange event was held last month, and it provided another opportunity to share the great practice from West Yorkshire. We've got some global interest in that event as well, we had online and in-person interaction, and it went very well. So hopefully some of the lessons that are being learned and some of the innovation that's being developed in West Yorkshire is helping others in other places. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to agenda item 11, actually, review action. Sorry. No, actually, it's published. Sorry, it's agenda item 10, published schemes report attached. Any queries on that? No. Agenda item 11, reviewed actions log. Any issues, queries? No. Agenda item 12, forward agenda plan.
Chair. Yeah. May I just raise something on before the agenda plan? Not on the items, other than there's the HMIC FRS reassessment in June and in the future. I'd just like to build upon what the Deputy Mayor said to you all last time, and I hope to see you all again on the panel post-May. But in May or June, the HMIC FRS inspection that's been going on in West Yorkshire Police will be published. It will come out, and that will highlight areas. Of course, it will, where there's areas that we need to improve. And what I'm about to say to you is it does not undermine the fact I passionately believe there's many areas across West Yorkshire where we need to improve. And I know that, and we use HMIC inspections, and we've always used them really well in order to reflect and hold a mirror up to us and improve our public service. But what I need to remind you of is what the Deputy Mayor said last time, and you know where I'm going with this. There has been a definite recalibration of HMIC assessments and gradings across the country. So since the last meeting, I've looked across. There's been 13 or 14 published reports so far into other police forces across the country under this new criteria. If you remember, there's 5 grades of outstanding, good, adequate, requires improvement, and inadequate. And then if you're really struggling as a force, there's then cause for concern, and you get taken into an engaged process with the national structure. So of those grades, they apply to 8 questions, and I won't take too much of your time up. But what I'm saying to you is adequate and requires improvement is clearly the new normality. Okay? So of those 13 or 14 forces that have had their reports published, there's 8 questions. We'll bring all this back to you. In 2 of those questions, nobody's got above adequate. There's no one force in the country who's got above adequate, and that's responding to the public and investigating crime. So nobody has got above adequate. There's lots of requires improvements and lots of causes for concern. In 3 of the other questions, protecting vulnerable people, managing offenders and leadership and management are all parts of the organisation. I could count on one hand the amount of goods across all 3 questions. So what I'm painting you a picture of is there's a recalibration, and adequate is almost the new good, if that makes sense. HMIC won't say that, and I repeat what the Deputy Mayor said to you last time is, please, when the report comes out, look at it and we'll bring those comparisons in comparison to other forces. I've also noted in looking at those 13 or so forces that there's no metropolitan large forces like ours dealing with complex issues who seems to be getting good reports. Okay, now I will draw my own inferences to that as to the reasons, but that's not, not to say that it's not possible in that sense. So what I'm saying to you is, and I'm repeating, please look at it in the context of other forces, this current regime, rather than going back to the old question sets and the old gradings, because I think I'm probably getting my message across. There are currently 6 forces in Engage and 6 forces with serious causes for concern in that sense. So we'll see what comes with the report. I'm optimistic and confident that that last part is definitely not us. I'm not warming you up for that. But I'm saying to you, when you see it, it's clearly a different inspection regime. I've got no problem with that, because I think all inspection regimes, whether it's Care Quality Commission or Ofsted or other inspectorates of prisons and probation and CPS, they've all got to recalibrate at some stage. They're just not very public about them doing it, and then the reports come out. I've said my piece, I think you know where I'm going with it, but hold us to account. But I'll reaffirm what I said at the beginning. There will be areas to improve in West Yorkshire, things that we need to be better at. Most of them will be areas we've told HMIC about, we're already on with, like PDR and other things, but there's a whole host of other things as well. And I don't ever underestimate what I'm saying is, I would not for 1 minute think there isn't things we should be improving. There's loads, there's absolutely loads. Most of them, you'll hear me in the future years, will come back to resources, which comes back to money, which comes back to capability, not just that cops aren't very good at things, there's just not enough of them to be good at it. But I've said enough there. Thank you, John.
Yeah, and we might be bringing you a paper on the November or December meeting, depending on how long it takes, because the force have got time to respond and do various reports, so we'll try and get you something either November or hopefully December at the latest, in response to whatever we do get.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, complaints received by the panel. We received 1 complaint. Please see the report attached. Agenda item 14, any other business? Yeah, Trevor?
Yeah, Chair, I would like it, I wasn't sure it would be raised today or not, but I just wanted to get a lot of brickbats with the force and the Mayor's office also knows. But here's a bouquet for you, because I think it was reported this week, and so well done and congratulations for tremendous tenacity and professionalism for finally apprehending the man wanted for the murder of PC Sharovich-Nivsky, which I remember the situation very well, because I'd only just joined the police authority, my first year back in 2005, 18 years ago, and I witnessed the heartache and the pain felt from families and from the force, and from the wider police force, and all partner organisations, and the strong desire of the force to bring her killer to justice. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been, when you read about it, and the difficulty of dealing with somebody in a foreign country where we don't even have an extradition treaty with. So, whatever's gone on behind the scenes over that period of time, consistently keep going, keep that tenacity going, to get that result is a phenomenal result, I think, not just for West Yorkshire force, but for all forces, and also for the wider justice system. And I think it's really good for general law and order as well. So a terrific well done to everybody that was involved in that.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously, all plaudits must go to West Yorkshire Police for the work and the partners that they engaged in order to achieve that outcome. Chief Constable, anything you want to say?
No, I think it's been well said in the media that Pirandir Khan and his sentence is awaiting. His conviction has occurred, but his sentence is awaiting. Pirandir Khan is very clearly the instigator and the mastermind and the arranger of that robbery. And he did that with people from other parts of the country, but he brought those murderers into Bradford to commit that offence. And you're right, Mr Lake and Deputy Mayor, there's been a whole host of work over many years by many people within West Yorkshire Police, with the Foreign Commonwealth Office, NCA, other agencies, the Pakistani government and international law enforcement to get to a situation which has been very, very difficult. Yeah, justice has been done across the country. It comes off the back of in 2003 we lost Ian Broadhurst as well, another police officer murdered on duty in West Yorkshire, again by somebody on this occasion with international connections. But yeah, it will bring in that term some closure to the families. And again, we shouldn't forget Teresa, who was the attempted murder, and it could be banged so quickly and easily, a double homicide. So thank you, but yeah, I'll put that back to the leaders over many years who've been involved in it.
Thank you. I just want to say thanks for your attendance for attending today's meeting. The date and time of next meeting is with the annual general meeting, which will be held at 10 a.m. on Friday the 14th of June here. Thank you.
And can I just wish everybody luck if you're up for election, and hope to see you all next year. Thank you so much for all your challenge and really constructive criticism, and it's been a pleasure to work with you all, and thank you for a brilliant 3 years.
Thank you.